It's been more than 2 centuries. Sweden has not participated in any war since the 15th of August 1814, when the Convention of Moss was signed. The country just ended its brief war with Norway. Norway was part of the losing side during the Napoleonic Wars, the war that pitted the French Empire and its allies, led by, as the name suggested, Napoleon I. Norway was ceded to the King of Sweden after the Treaty of Kiel was negotiated on the 14th of January 1814. They fought for their independence, which Sweden didn't like. But the Convention of Moss ultimately ended the conflict between Sweden and Norway. Now that Putin launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Sweden might be looking at a new potential war 2 centuries later. Because of this, Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson officially announced on the 16th of May 2022 their intention to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, a day after Finland announced theirs.
We all agree that we must stand together. And we all agree that this is an historic moment which we must seize.
The King of Sweden, Carl XVI Gustav, was informed and later called the decision to join NATO a historic choice which we are making side by side with our brother country, their brother being Finland. Their membership would end Sweden's 200 years of neutrality. But how did Sweden become neutral in the first place? And how neutral were they really? Against Russia during the Napoleonic Wars. The country lost a third of its territory. They also lost Finland to Russia, a country that Sweden has actually been ruling since perhaps 1150. Then Russian Emperor Alexander I needed Sweden as an ally against Napoleon. In the negotiations, Sweden got the Tsar to force Denmark to cede Norway to them, but in exchange, they ceded Finland to Russia. Finland became a part of Russia until their independence in 1917, as we've explored in the previous episode. Through the Treaty of Kiel, Sweden forced Denmark to hand over Norway, and as it was told, Norway got its independence, and Sweden drew back their arms with the Convention of Moss. Other than the Swedish backup force on Jutland during the First War of Schleswig that lasted from 1848 to 1851, the Swedes followed their long-standing neutrality through World War I, which lasted from 1914 to 1918. This despite the Swedish nobility wanting to enter the war on the German side. The pro-German policy led to famine and rebellion, leading to the downfall of Sweden's government, making way for political reforms and the reign of social democrats. Sweden didn't sign the Treaty of Versailles, the treaty that concluded World War I, but they did join the League of Nations, the first worldwide intergovernmental organization whose goal was to maintain world peace, founded on the 10th of January 1920, an organization that would essentially be replaced by the United Nations, which would be founded on the 24th of October 1945. But with the threat of Nazi Germany, Sweden's neutrality was potentially in trouble.
Swedish people kept out of the last war. This time they may have to fight for their liberty, but they're ready. Like the Finns, they know how to use the natural defenses of their land.
On the 27th of May 1938, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, and Sweden declared their intent on keeping their neutrality if ever a world war struck. Only Sweden would survive World War II without getting attacked. Their fate depended on the battles outside of them. The Soviet Union invaded Finland during the Winter War. Nazi Germany invaded Norway and occupied Denmark. The British invaded Iceland, afraid that the Nazis would invade it after overrunning Denmark. Perhaps out of survival, just like in the case of Finland during the continuation war against the USSR, Swedish Prime Minister Per Albin Hansson aided the Nazis. Sweden supplied materials for Hitler's army, laundered gold confiscated from Holocaust victims, and failed to offer proper asylum for refugees. Some Swedes even joined the Waffen-SS, the combat branch of the Nazi Schutzstaffel or SS organization, the major paramilitary organization of Nazi Germany. Nevertheless, Sweden saved many Jews from the wrath of the Nazis.
Is this the end of the Hitler legend, or is it just another story? Maybe his ghost will turn up someday and give a repeat performance of those balcony rantings, now the delight of Allied soldiers.
Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Denmark wanted to create the Scandinavian Defense Union post-World War II, but Finland ended up signing the Finno-Soviet Treaty of 1948, or the FCMA. prohibiting them from joining this failed defense union, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO. Denmark and Norway joined NATO, badly needing the American aid, or the Marshall Plan for reconstruction after the war. Sweden ultimately remained neutral. Cold War, the period of tension between the US and the Soviet Union, and the respective allies, the Western Bloc and the Eastern Bloc, followed World War II. Similar to Finland, Sweden's neutrality after World War II and during the Cold War was to avoid the potential cataclysmic nuclear war between the superpowers. And similar to Finland, they had a preference for the West.
For the neutral, time of war is certainly not a time of peace. Her very neutrality means that she must always be on her guard against any violation of it. Though not a belligerent, she must adopt warlike measures to keep out of the fray. Such is the topsy-turvy position that war imposes.
Nonetheless, Sweden secretly pursued nuclear weapons, but abandoned them altogether when they signed on the 19th of August 1968 the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, whose first signatory was Finland. They also secretly had ties with NATO and the US during the Cold War, despite their official policy of neutrality. When the Soviet Union fell and the Cold War ended, Sweden eased their neutrality and became more of a military non-aligned country. They joined the European Union, or EU, in 1995, and have since cooperated on international military missions under EU and NATO command, but never officially joined NATO. But now in 2022, Putin's war further pushed Sweden to the west.
Видимо, понимаем, находимся на ВДНХ, такая традиционная площадка, где приходишь к этому осознанию, к этому пониманию. Ну вот Петр I Северную войну 21 год вел.
Before the invasion of Ukraine, the majority of Swedes have long embraced their neutrality, with only 27% in favor of membership in NATO. But recent polls back in May 2022 revealed that 52% of Swedes wanted their country to join the alliance. The governing party voted in favor of joining NATO, announcing their decision on the 16th of May 2022. 2 days later, on the 18th of May 2022, Sweden's application was filed together with Finland's, effectively ending their 200 years of military non-alignment. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that the country could fast-track its membership in the alliance.
We are in dialogue with Finland and Sweden, and it's their decision. But if they decide to apply, Finland and Sweden will be warmly welcomed and expect the process to go quickly.
If ever Sweden gets dragged into war again, let us hope that Russia does not absorb any more of their territories this time.